How did you find time to attend 200 meetings?
I don't know who OpenAI is. And the corporate, they rejected it. It blew my mind that we could build these tools that basically could take all this data, put together a killer offer, and we send it to the right people. And everybody that's saying that is selling Outlook inboxes.
Like, what was your sales psychology about that script?
Based on how many emails I need to send, who are the right people that make purchasing decisions, which
We need to send 1,000 emails. We don't have 1,000 emails. There are only 70 people in the world now who can become our customers.
use this software and you'll get great replies. If my messaging is no and not I might get a reply.
Hey everyone, welcome to the second episode of Are We Rolling? Today we have Josh Whitfield. He has transitioned from being a data analyst to running a full-time cold agency, handling multiple clients and limited resources. With limited resources because he doesn't have a huge team, but yet he's able to make money. He's able to send a lot of email by leveraging AI. And this video, we are going to discover how Josh exactly does it. So I hope Josh will be able to share a lot of insights, not gatekeep a lot of information, which is what we want from guests from this podcast. So yeah, I think Josh again, like I've been able to personally connect with him. For if I think of a one word for Josh, I would say he's an innovator. He tries to solve a problem by being able to zoom out and focusing on the goal. So, a lot of things which has helped him in his personal journey. We will talk about them and hopefully they will help you learn more about Josh and also improve your cold emailing and improve your reply rates, your campaign stats, everything. So, that's all. So, hey Josh, thanks a lot, first of all, for agreeing to do this with me. I wish we could do this in person in Dubai. It's fine. Like, as long as I have your time and I have your wisdom, I would be grateful to this. And I hope the audience also loves this video and the knowledge they get from this. So yeah, how's it going? It's too early for you. You're based in Arizona, right?
We're in different parts of the world, right? But we share that, that commonality of being, extremely hot during the summer.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's early for me. It's not too bad. I mean, 7:30 in the morning. So, glad to be here. As you mentioned, right? We've connected. We share a lot in common, and we've connected, and we both kind of have worked together over the last year. Just putting a lot of trust, and that
Yeah,
the one thing we both believe is we just try to do the right thing for people, right? At the end of the day, and
100%,
it's
100%.
exciting to get to work with you and talk with you just about these things that are passionate to both of us at the end of the day.
Yeah, definitely. There are a lot of similarities. I would like to let the audience know Josh is one of the person. I recommended a friend of mine to him to run a campaign for her, but Josh also rejected her, saying like you can do this yourself. So instead of going for that deal, he went in the direction of educating her of how to do that. And if you visit his profile, I'll mention the link here. Josh, on a daily basis, posts a lot of content about cold emailing, about AI, and how to improve the coffee. So, yeah, like you said, Josh, there's a lot of things in common. I was having this conversation with Felipe the other day. It's about who you are as a person. So, if you are good as a person, you will attract good towards you. But if you are inside, there is some darkness, then of course you attract darkness. Everything about you, like I really admire you. And I say this to a lot of people behind your back as well. So yeah, cool. So yeah, Arizona, like did you grow up in Arizona or did you move here? Like what was it like?
Yeah, I am planted here. So I was with a company called Farmers Insurance. They're owned by Zurich. And so in the United States, they're a big insurance company. I'm a Fortune
Right.
500 company. And so I was born in Houston, Texas, believe it or not. I'm a native Texan. And
Mhm.
then I spent most of my life there, probably till it was about 6 years ago. Farmers opened a new building here. And so they relocated me to Phoenix. And then we'll probably get into that part of the story later. But, at the end of the day, that's how I ended up here, which was nice because that was the second time I'd relocated. The first time within Texas from Houston to Dallas, but then the second time was here. And I think I'd only been to Phoenix one time, like everybody else.
Oh,
I just thought it was like cactuses and the sun all the time. And, now living here for 6 years, it's a very unique and it's a really beautiful place too. So I do love living here. I miss Texas. That's where my parents are and some of my family is, but it's nice. My brother, who also works with me now, is also in Arizona. So
interesting.
my family is here as well as my brother. So definitely helps when he's in Tucson. I'm in Phoenix, so he's still about 100 miles away. But it's nice to have even immediate family here. And my parents come up from time to time and visit us. They're retired, so we like it up here.
Yeah, it's good to stay close to your family as well as have them in your business. At Inboxology, the customer success Zainab, she's actually my sibling.
Oh
So
wow! See, there you go.
yeah, I love working with family on the same goal. At the end of the day, they understand the goal very easily, and especially from the background you come from. Like, I don't come from a very affluent, resourceful background, yet we have been able to make it to here. So the thoughts, the innovations, the process, they kind of remind you of where you were and where you are now, and to go forward, what is needed. Of course, there are a lot of people you meet on on your journey who you can exchange ideas with, but I feel family is at the top there, who resonates with what you are thinking, so it helps
Yeah,
in business a lot. Great.
absolutely.
Yeah, so let's talk about this farmers insurance journey. Prior to cold emailing, you were working with them as a data analyst. If I can remember, it's not a very popular title or a very popular function among a lot of people. But how did you land into like data analyst after your MBA?
Yeah, it's kind of a crazy story because even if you go further before that, and a lot of people don't know this, it's not on my LinkedIn resume, but or on my LinkedIn, but I was actually a firefighter and an EMT for 11 years.
Wow.
So when I was I know I look younger than I am, but when I was a
Oh my God.
baby, 21 years old, I went through the fire academy. And so I worked on a fire truck, EMS. And then I got my bachelor's degree during that time while I was doing that. And so I wanted to, I loved doing what I was doing, but it was becoming very medical. Like I was spending a lot of time on the ambulance versus the fire truck. And so I decided like I wanted to kind of do both. So for the last couple of years of doing that, I was doing that at night and I started working in farmers insurance during the day. So I'd work nights and weekends on the fire truck and work during the day. Even got to respond to like a
That's a
hurricane
lot.
because Houston got hit by a hurricane when I was doing that. So but I did that for a couple of years, and then I moved out of that sector, mainly because of pay. Like the, it's horrible to say, but I had kids and a family, and I wanted to kind of grow. I'd gotten my degree, I wanted to grow in my income, and so I started with farmers for 3 years. I was handling auto claims, just writing estimates on car wrecks, right? Because of my fire background, I got interested in what's called special investigations. And so we
Mm.
investigated all kinds of fraud claim, house fires, car fires, stolen cars, everything. And
And
I
your
did
prior
that.
experience was helping you because you were a firefighter,
Yeah,
so you
exactly.
knew
Yeah.
everything. Yeah.
And a lot of those claims were arson claims, like somebody was upside down on their vehicle, so they'd burn it, or same with their house, et cetera. Right. So it was really exciting, and that's what actually I was really into that role. But I'd done it for about 10 years. Right. I was an investigator. I was a manager of investigators. I became like a regional zone manager, which I had multiple different states, including like California and in Arizona and Washington. So I part of my role in special investigations was to build the first predictive fraud model, right? And so these were the models that we were building early on to try to predict whether someone was filing a fraudulent claim. And I got to work with the data science team at Farmers to do that. And I really loved it. Like it blew my mind that we could build these tools that basically could take all this data and predict fraud. And it was really accurate because my team would then investigate those
Yeah.
predictions and a lot of them would be true, right? And it was very regulated. Like we had to report that stuff to the Department of Insurance. And so, especially like in California. So, they did a really good job. So I went and got my master's. I just like, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. And I got my MBA and I focused specifically on data intelligence. And that landed me a role with that team. I started off as a team manager for a group of data scientists. These were like data scientists essentially with PhDs, like actuaries, super next level intelligent, well beyond anything I even know today.
Yeah.
Because the math, it was all math. There was no chat GPT. There was no open
Correct.
AI.
It's
But
machine
I'll tell you,
learning. Yeah.
Yeah,
Always.
machine learning, natural language processing, right?
Yes.
But
A lot of.
I'll tell you the funniest story. So I was a couple years into that role, and we wanted to start using text models because in insurance there's a lot of documents, right?
True.
And so my team was like, "Have you ever heard of OpenAI?" It's like, "Oh, I don't know who OpenAI is." And so we submitted a request to our corporate department to get approval to use their models. Keep in mind, this is well before ChatGPT. And the corporate, they rejected it. They said they did not have enough financial solvency, which means they just didn't have enough background. At the time, they were a nonprofit, right?
Yeah.
Today, they're a $1 billion company. I mean, tens of $1 billion. I think their valuation is, hundreds of billions, right? But just the irony of how fast the world changes, that a couple of years ago I couldn't get them approved to build models, and today they are who they are. But that's how I got into it. So I ended up leading one team. I then got certified in what's called agile methodology, so I became a product manager, and so I led 4 teams, and one did data science, one did automation. So we used a tool called Solonis, which it's the company who owns Make. So if you're familiar with Make, Solonis is
Oh,
their parent company, and
yeah.
it's the same thing just at the corporate level, all integrated in cloud and all that. And then I had another team that was just purely a data team. That's all they did is cloud data, and it was just Google Cloud, Microsoft. AWS, and then Azure AWS. And then the final team did robotic process automation. They built, RPAs that,
RPA.
we would just take things and make them faster. But it's funny if you tie that all back together, because you look at today and you're like, RPAs are going away because of computer use models, right?
Yeah.
Like OpenAI's operator can do what a lot of the RPAs we used to do. LLMs are taking over the world. Every
Right.
every day there's a new one, right? The only thing that probably isn't going away is cloud, right? AWS, all that will still be there, but
Yeah.
and data science, is something that somebody can do. And again, you can't ever take away the knowledge of somebody. So they'll never be able to take away my knowledge, but the tools are just getting better and faster. I mean, we used to have people on our team that did R and Python and all of that programming. And today you can type into GPT and get a Python code, right? So
Yeah.
it's a dramatically different world, but it's part of the reason why I am doing what I'm doing now, because the company saw those changes coming. They could see them coming
True.
all across
True.
the enterprise, right? So that's how
I
I
have a
got there.
question. I have a question from this. Josh, you mentioned that in your previous company, there was a model created which literally solved 99% of your problems about the incident audit, whether it is real or it's an arsony. Now, during that time, did you ever had a thought or insecurity like this is going to take away my job? Or did anyone in your team had that thought? Like, how did they adopt it? Because this is pre-chat GPT era
Yeah.
where we are talking about a model which is going to do a human's job. So how was your feeling around that time?
Yeah, it's. I think when you're in any kind of technical role, number one, you're spending a lot of money. Like I had a $5 to $10 million a year budget, and so when you're spending that kind of money, you always have a lot of attention on that, right? And
Yeah.
especially in insurance, insurance is a very simple financial model. You got to
Yeah.
take in more money than you pay out, and it's the same thing in any business, right?
Yeah.
But so there's a lot of focus on big budgets all the time, and so I say that to preface your question with the fact that the question is always, if I'm going to spend this, how much am I going to save, right? What they
Yeah.
call it ROI. What's my return on investment, right?
Right.
And so that was always a question with everything we did, right? If we build a model that predicts fraud, do we need people to go through claims and determine whether or not there's fraud? If we build an RPA that does this, then what is down to the penny, what is the projected return on that investment? And some of those RPAs we built saved millions of dollars because they took things that were highly
Right.
manual, reading a document, typing stuff into the system, and a robot would sit there and do it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It doesn't need vacation, it doesn't need sick pay, it doesn't need benefits, right? And it always works, right? So it was always a concern. I think the good thing is the way we always handled it is that when we would often we kind of tackled it 2 ways. Like we would either not replace roles in that department in the future, or we would take those roles and reallocate them, right? So
Mhm.
it always created efficiency, but what it didn't do is cost people jobs, because and that was always the straight. I'd look at people and say, look, we're not taking, yes, your job may change. We're not trying to eliminate your job, but if we do away with this task, then the next time that somebody leaves or somebody gets promoted or whatever, we don't have to fill that role, right? So there is a savings there, but it's not going in and slashing
Makes
people.
sense.
But to be ironic, I mean, that's what happened to 3,000 of us at the same time, right? So I say that, and that's what we did, but that's our approach. But that doesn't mean it doesn't happen because it happened to me, right?
And following that, now coming to our industry, B2B email outreach, we have so many technologies. Now we are at the peak, in a way, in human mankind history, using machine learning, using language models, using like these chat GPTs. Literally, like I had a talk with Felipe on my last video where he mentioned they are going to make it so easy. People who are willing to do outreach, they can do it without any technical knowledge very quickly. So, how do you think the agencies like yourself or other fellow competitors, how they should navigate this space for the next year or two? Like we have like pretty much I know right now I can automate everything right from targeting people to closing them to getting them on board, and running the campaign for them to giving them the positive response. 100% everything can be automated, but
Mhm.
this is kind of scary also for a lot of people. But what would be your take on how other people can leverage such automation, this new technology, and grow their business? Or how are you doing it?
Yeah, I think that's the million-dollar question. So when it comes down to doing this, just because it can be done doesn't mean it should be done. Part of that is, the argument, right? Because like, let's just take replies, for example. True story. I told this to a lead the other day. He kind of laughed at me, but it really happened. We got an email from a client or from a lead on a cold email campaign. And the guy was like, his response was, I have a budget meeting tomorrow. And this was like late November. So the timing was really interesting too. It's like, I have a budget meeting tomorrow. Give me a quote for 2,200 licenses. This is not a cheap software for this client, right?
Correct.
Big company, tier one company, right? I don't know if I want AI handling that reply. That could be $100,000, $1 million deal, right? And
100%.
what if AI was like, let me check with my boss or no thanks or whatever, right? So part of it is like, yes, these models are next level amazing and contextually aware. They're getting smarter every over the last 90 days. I feel like because of all the investment, it's just rapidly coming. I almost can't keep up. Like this week it
Yeah.
was 4.0 got updated, Grok 3 came out. Like every week it's a major movement, right? Deep
True.
research from Perplexity on Friday, right? And these are game changing things, right? But they're very hard to keep up with. And their capabilities just get better and better. And they're like big screen TVs. They're better but cheaper every single time. So it's an amazing thing. Just because it can be automated, I don't know that it should. But I think yes, there are going to be tools that you go into and prompt into, I want these type of leads, and then you can run an email campaign automatically. I don't think that's going to help with deliverability. I mean, to some extent, it's not going to choose. It's
Yeah.
not going to stop people from trying to send. The best analogy I can give is there's a whole world of businesses right now that are well funded. Let's just say 5 million to 50 million that still think they should be sending emails out of Apollo and Zoom Info at 50 a day, right? And they do.
Mhm.
And some of those people become my clients because they can't figure out how they're sending, number
True.
one, how they burn their primary domain. Number two, why they get one of my biggest clients came from me because the reply rate was 0.01%. And I
True.
just had a simple proposition like, I can get that to 1%. I mean, that's low, right? But I'm like, I can get your reply rate to 1% and 10 times your engagements by sending the same email on different infrastructure. And I did, and they're now my clients still 26 weeks later, right? So part of it is I think that just because you can do it doesn't mean you're going to do it well. I still think they're going to need people like us that understand all aspects of it. And I like to call that term like an orchestrator, where it's someone who orchestrates the
That's
decisions
right.
along the way.
Yeah.
I still think like I was testing Grok last night because every time a new model comes out, it's like Christmas for me. So I
Yeah.
was, it really is. So
I know
I
it's
was
like a
in
kid when
a
a
kid
new
in a candy
PS5 is
store.
announced. That's
Yeah.
I know that about you. Like every day I wake up to some content from you about, hey, look what is happening here. And I really love
Hmm.
that Netflix one, like DeepSeek versus OpenAI. Give me
Yeah.
five spiders. That's crazy. I know like how enthusiastic you are about this new models and everything. So yeah.
Yeah, it really is like it's hard to sleep sometimes because I
True.
work all day, I work all night, and then I'm like, oh, I want to try this. So, but that's like perfect examples. I'm in Grok last night and I'm like, and I always like to test it with my own business because, I know my business better than anybody,
Correct.
right? So I'm like, the prompt I always use with these new models is review content marketing media and then create an email on behalf of me to a SaaS founder and make it personalized, make it sound like a human, blah, blah, blah. And that's kind of like, it's the same prompt basically. And I test it with every new model that comes out, right? And it keeps getting better. Don't get me wrong.
Correct.
But not one of them can start off without the simple sentences we're all used to seeing, like just I've yet to see one that just writes it like I would write it, right? And so that's part of it, is that you're still going to need that human in the middle to
Mhm.
go, hey, I want this kind of style, I want this. You're
Correct.
going to need balancing, like
Correct.
maybe you can program Gmail to say never send more than 10, et cetera, do this warm up, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know that just because you can do it with AI doesn't mean that people, like, you see the same
So
stuff I do, like on
I,
Instantly's
I I was
Facebook,
having
people are
this
like,
conversation, yeah, in regards to this. So there was someone who confronted me and said, like, your YouTube channel banner says that knowledge must be free. We are in the time that knowledge is actually free. So what are
yeah.
you doing differently? So my argument was knowledge is free for sure, but it's not accessible. For example, everyone can use these tools, but you don't know what is the balance or what are the prompts or to what level you should use this. And because of which, the human factor will never go away. I don't think
Mhm.
as AI literally artificial intelligence. I just think of it as a computer who can compute million times faster compared to what we were doing. It doesn't have an intelligence of its own. It is only doing a research at a very fast level. That is my take on it. It will, yes,
Mhm.
we are going to step into a future and we are going to be part of it. It's very near where we will have an agentic type of an behavior from an AI, which is literally like a kid who has been raised with certain value and it grew up to be an adult and an expert or a professional in some field. But in today's time, I don't think the AI is literally AI. So what do you think
Yeah.
about that?
The thinking models are getting there, right?
Mhm.
Like I am super stoked to see GPT 4.5 and 5.0, both which will come in the next 90 days, because the thinking part definitely makes a difference. Like O1 and Grok's new model, they really do kind of process chain of thought. Here's the thing at the end of the day, right? It's like I've been educated in data science. I've managed
Correct.
real data scientists, right? I understand how these models were built before ChatGPT existed. And that doesn't make it any easier. It's still hard. I can't even imagine, just because you have a Ferrari in the driveway doesn't mean you know how to drive a Ferrari, right?
100%.
And it doesn't mean you're still not going to get a speeding ticket or crash your car. And I think that's kind of the problem, is I don't know how to drive a Ferrari either, but I
That's a
know
good
how a large
analogy.
language model is built and I know why it does what it does. And they're becoming so advanced that I don't even know. They're built by billion-dollar companies. I mean, look, it's like X and Google and Microsoft and Amazon and Meta. These are all the billion-dollar companies building all this stuff, right? And they're all doing it a little bit differently. So I think part of the challenges is going to be it's going to be the hard part is the little guy is going to get squeezed out. The guy on Fiverr who charges $1,000 a month at $100 a meeting, he's going to get knocked out if he hasn't already, because you just can't keep. It's very, very hard to compete with people like us, right? Who have, I mean, I have 20 different softwares we use.
True.
And then number two, I mean, I think part of it is like I almost think the opposite to what you and Felipe were talking about. It's like I don't yet, just because the little guy can go in there and prompt a campaign, I don't know if they'll be able to, because if you look at today, I shared a LinkedIn post as a lead magnet. I actually hate doing that, but it's good for engagement, right? And because my team they have to respond to all that, so they hate it. And what I did is I used Perplexity's latest model called Deep Research, their Deep Research, and I went in and asked it to explain email fingerprinting at a complex level and asked it to explain how to combat it. It is the most technically mind-blowing thing I've ever seen. And
Yeah,
it goes into the data science principles. And I'll
true.
break down one thing for you that will just change your perspective on cold email. In data science, there's this thing called computer vision, right? So
Okay.
like and you know this from ChatGPT in imaging, right? They have the ability to look at an image, right?
Yeah.
And render what that image is, right? I could spend an hour explaining to why large language models can easily pick up on the words you use and everything and how that's easy to flag and why if you send 25 emails a day, that's different than sending 3.
Yeah.
You know all that. The computer imaging part is extremely interesting because now imagine you use, whether it's spin tax or AI, you use different words every single time, 25 times a day across, let's just say 100 accounts. You've basically done everything right. Everybody says use spin tax, use AI, and your emails are a
The
million
context.
times unique, right? But computer imaging and computer vision changes that because now this computer can look at your email and go, well, guess what? Every single time he starts off with "Hi, Josh," and then it's one sentence, two sentences, the same CTA, the same signature. And so everything, and even if you did that 25 or 250 times a day, right? No human does that with regular email. Like
True.
you and I
True.
email each
True.
other, we don't.
True.
And then you start to add in linguistically, like no human talks like a large language model. We all put dot dot dot. We all say, we all use colloquialisms, which is
Spelling
basically
mistake.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, spelling
So many things.
mistakes. Like in Texas, we say y'all, like all of those things don't happen with large language
True.
models, right? And so that's what this paper is about. This paper is about the idea that we think we're good using AI, but the reality is if Google wants to fingerprint our email or Microsoft,
Correct.
it's super easy because
Yeah.
we're still not doing these 19 other things that normal humans do. So I'm sharing that today, but it's kind of mind blowing because you think, like, getting back to the question you asked, how does somebody that doesn't understand AI know how to combat that? Right? Like I know how to prompt into that. I know how to use perplexity and do deep research, but I've been trained on all this stuff and it takes me 5 minutes to figure out a new model. Like I don't know how someone, like cold email is like a constant moving target every single day.
Correct.
Like Microsoft is this, Google is this, la la la. But it's like shooting at a moving target all the time. Like it's always here,
100%.
here, and you're doing it thousands of emails. So that's what I don't know. Like I struggle to keep up with it all. And I feel like I'm pretty qualified. I can't imagine with someone like my team. I have 21-year-old GTM engineers working for me. And like, yeah, they know how to build great clay tables, but I have to keep up with the AI and tell them what to use because they just don't have this experience or knowledge to
Under
understand.
the vision, like they don't think
Yeah.
past like I've noticed this. I manage a team on a regular basis, and I struggle showing my vision to someone in my team who has not experienced that level of height before. So if I have that conversation with you, I don't need to explain that to you, but I may have like someone with 10 years of experience in development, but he has only worked on Java for 10 years. And
Yeah.
if I try to show him that vision, he'll come back to me saying it's impossible. So yeah, I know that what you're saying.
Yeah, it's an exciting world. Like I love it on one
Yeah,
end, right? It's just every day is different and every day there's a new toy to play with, right? In the driveway,
correct.
so to say. But it's also a little it's nobody really knows what the definition of AGI is, which is artificial general intelligence. And they all keep talking about it.
Yeah,
So I think there is even a real possibility, right, where, a world exists where you can go in and do this well. I think it's either going to be way too expensive for the average person. Like I think of like all these big database aggregators, right? Like what happens to them? Because I can go into GPT right now and prompt a list of 100 SaaS companies, their LinkedIn profiles, if they
yeah,
got funding last week and all that. So it's just a dial that GPT needs to turn at this point, and I could do 4,000 or 20,000, right?
correct.
So I wonder what happens to them. But some of those companies are $100 million companies, right? So it's like they're going to fight their way out of this as much as they can. But I think that's the one thing that people, and I tell my clients this, and they seem to forget. If you pay attention to what these models are doing, they're wiping out entire industries with
Correct.
one model, right? They're like,
That is true.
boom, we're here now. You can do this in ChatGPT. There goes the whole industry. 100.
True.
My favorite saying is every time there's a new model that comes out, 100 SaaS companies are born and 100 SaaS companies die, and it's 100% true. It's
I,
probably
I, I
more.
will I will agree with you 100% on this. I have seen this change like in cold emailing course itself over the last 10 years. The dynamics of the industry, I'm talking from a cold email automation standpoint, they changed drastically because there is a big move being made in the internet world. So we are again in that era where we will see a lot of companies coming up and a lot of companies going out of the business. But yeah, to summarize what you said, it's like you do have an experience of how to fire a gun, how to fire a bazooka, or but it's going to be your human experience. Like depending on the target, do I need to use a 9 mm or do I need to use a bazooka?
Mhm.
That's what will matter, and that's how agencies can be ahead of the game with the other competition and kind of beat the AI model based companies who come into cold emailing space.
Yeah, and the bazooka analogy is interesting, right? Because what's funny, if you watch this industry that's changed over the last 6 months, is I'm probably the only one that still does it. You used to see people sharing these big graphics with all these amazing numbers, and you just
Yeah.
don't see it anymore. I mean, like, I'm probably the only one left that consistently, in some form or fashion, shares like my instantly stats. There's a few in the Facebook group, but like I do it now on LinkedIn, but when I do it, it's usually like the client that I send a million emails for. And my reply rate's still 1.9%, which is not great, right? But for me, 8 million emails, it breaks out and it makes them a lot of money. But you just don't see that anymore. And that's because it's getting harder, right? It's getting harder. And I like to tell people and I show people this is a great way to close deals. If anybody wants to take this away from this video, this is my
Do you
cheat.
do you do you also think, Josh, it's getting harder also by so-called gurus or influencers within the industry who create noise and not give the information directly, and they try to gatekeep, and because they want them, like if someone is suffering, they want them to become their customer rather than giving them free knowledge. Do you think that that also happens in our industry? I feel it
Yeah,
personally.
yeah,
That's
all the time. I like you notice it, if you ever noticed from me, like I don't ever share like copy that I use, right? Because number one, if you're sharing your copy to whatever, I mean everybody's going to use that copy and then it's dead anyway, right? So I
yeah.
don't share those kind of templates. Like even today, like when we're sharing a lead magnet, which we don't do, it's like a 14-page document that I just did all the research that does nothing but like explain and help people versus like go do this, right? Because
This is very
I
true.
do
Yeah.
I do agree, right? Like but I've noticed just a lot less of that overall, and the part of it I think is just comes down to the fact that you can't do it truthfully anymore, right? Like the
So
only way you
true.
can go
So
out and
true.
say like do this and I did this and all that is share the
Yeah.
results. And so
And
I
this
don't do it
happened
unless yeah.
in your community. This is in your community itself. There was someone who was talking about how email works and all this, how you can stay out of spam, and he was talking about some different things. And I gave him a reply, and he never responded back to me. Within the group, I've replied to him like this could be a problem, and he never replied back to me. But yet he kept yapping about this thing, and I questioned him,
Yeah.
like, how many emails are you sending on a daily basis? These people are not even sending more than 1,000 emails
Yeah.
and they're
Yeah.
creating
Like
noise.
50. Yeah. Well, so Outlook is the best example of that, right? Everybody in the industry has struggled with Outlook for the last 4 or 5 months. I mean, it's a known issue, and the people that are truthful about it will either admit that it's a known issue, or they will say, "Look, like us, unless we absolutely have to, we don't send to it." Outside of just my group, right? I think there's like 300 people in our group. I'm in other groups too, right? And some of the same agency leaders and stuff. And you see, like I would see these like people come in and say like, "Oh, I'm getting great results with Outlook. And I'm like, number one, that's bullshit. But number two, I wanted to understand their motivation as to why they say that, right? And everybody that's saying that is selling Outlook inboxes, right? And
100%.
so
100%.
that would be like you going out there, your company sells Outlook inboxes, right? And if
Yep.
you were going out there and you were saying, "Come buy my product. I am the way to Outlook. I am the Messiah. This is how you get there."
I'll tell you this, Josh. I can show this. Just before stepping on this call, I received a message from someone who is not a client, but we have spoken, we have exchanged couple of messages, and he was telling me like I have problems with Outlook, and I was like, yeah, that's true. Everyone is suffering, and he was like, what should I do? I didn't quote him like you buy inboxes from me, and I'll do all of these things. I just told him like, man, here's a list of best practices. Follow those. That's it. There is
Yeah.
nothing else to be done. I didn't try
And
to
and
cross sell, but yeah, what you're saying is very true. And I also feel this happens with industry, not just with the resellers, but with other solution or service providers. They try to bring fear in the game. They want to scare people, everyone who is interested in this campaign, that knowledge must be free. We should not be gatekeeping, and we should sell to people who don't have time and not to people who don't have knowledge. Then I think we can bring a change together about how these discussions happen in all the groups.
Well, and that's what I love about you, and that's why I wanted to use that as an example because you don't do that, right? Like, and you're very honest and transparent with people, and that's its business, right? Maybe next week it'll be Google and Outlook will work great, right?
We
It's
never know.
constantly
We never
moving.
know. Yeah.
You never know. But it makes sense. Like I would tell people go buy Outlook inboxes if you're going to send Outlook. I
Hmm.
would just wouldn't tell them that this is going to fix all your problems. And that's the difference, right? And I think it's all about, to your question, there is a lot of misleading in this industry. There's very
Yeah.
much like use this software and you'll get great replies. Use
True.
this solution, this new thing, and it's part of the reason why me, you, and Felipe are all friends in common is because we all sell stuff. We all benefit financially if somebody comes to be our customers. We all use each other, by the way, but none of us do it for the sake of not doing the right thing, right? We will
That is
all
very true.
three look a customer in the face and say, I am not the solution. I literally told a lady the other day because she was like, it was actually a guy, a man. He's like, I got a couple, I forget the amount, but he's like 10 or 15,000 budgeted for the remainder of the year for my marketing budget. And I basically said, I'm like, and he's like, but once that runs out, I got to dip into my personal savings. And I'm like, well, don't hire me then. Like, you're not in the right spot to use
Correct.
me, right? Like, I don't want to rob your piggy bank and your family savings. Like,
True.
and those are the type of people that we are. But it's unfortunate. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of good people as well
I know.
that
I
are just
know.
like
I'm
that.
aware of
And
that. Yeah.
we all work with them. And that's why we probably all work with the same 10 or 15, people,
Yeah.
because not people but companies, because we know that they're trying to do the right thing. And there's a lot of agencies that I'm really good friends with that also do the right thing, but there's
Yep.
also a lot that are not, and it's unfortunate for consumers because it's really hard to tell the difference, because some of the ones that aren't are the best marketers in the world. They look like they're selling the Porsche when in reality they're selling a Pinto.
That's true. That's true. It's very unfortunate, but I hope people are educated through the efforts you are taking and effort I have taken in the direction of helping people out, not to keep the knowledge, give everything. And yeah, I would love people to comment below, and whatever your questions are, Josh can answer them. Josh, if you would like, I can mention link of your community as well, where you are frequently active and answer to these questions. So I think it would be great, like people to directly talk to the one who is doing the deed and not just someone who is yapping about, oh, this is going wrong, that is going wrong. So yeah, that's the difference. But yeah, interesting. Before we go ahead, Josh, like, do you wanna take water or something? Like, next question.
Yeah,
We both, like, we are so opposite. We don't come from the same region, religion, education. Nothing is same
anything.
between us.
Yeah.
But the value system has brought us on the same path.
In this business, things aren't always perfect, right? And like it's when they weren't perfect that I came to really appreciate the kind of person he was, right? And like he deals with some complex stuff, and it just at the end of the day, like he's very active in the group, in my group too. If you ever
Yes,
know, like
yes,
he's probably more active than I am, which is horrible. But
correct.
people will go in there and say stuff, and he'll be like, no, like this is why we did it, or he'll give us advance notice like he did this week of some changes that are positive that are making. So I mean, just like I just believe in do the right thing for the right reason. You
I
don't
love
always
that, man.
do, but as long as you try and you learn from your mistakes, and you're just level headed, like we I don't know, I just life's too short, man, to try to not do the right thing. Like I'd
100%,
rather
100%.
no amount of money, no amount of anything is more important than integrity, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
and I'll give you my personal life stories. Money has never helped me, man. It's not that money is a bad thing. You should not
Yeah.
earn money, but whatever I have achieved in terms of personal and professional growth by doing the right things,
Hmm.
like telling people like this is it. Like for example, with you, I never spoke of like, Josh, I'll refer you people, you give me commission. I don't want to do that. I'm doing it.
Yeah,
I just want, I can sleep at peace at night because I know like this client is going to work with Josh. He knows everything about this. So it is very peaceful for me. That is like if someone comes to me asking for help and I cannot help them, but I'm giving them off to a right person, it is very peaceful for me than making money and giving it to an agency who will pay me a commission. So not doing it for the money, doing it to make sure like people grow. And I have come from a background like I could not afford flying. Not many people know, but that is I wanted to become a pilot. I could not do it. Education was expensive. I wanted to become an investment banker, but at that time even that was expensive. So now it is kind of my vision to educate people and ultimately become an incubator.
yeah,
When I grow a little more, I want to have a platform where people can come with their ideas, their business, and say what they have a challenge with. I will solve that challenge for them in exchange for a little bit equity, like not something which is not going to cost them a lot. So that is the platform I want to aim towards. So yeah, it again it's the value system, man. Like if your value systems match, only then you are able to work together.
I agree. Nothing's more important.
You mentioned you will never give out your copy, and I agree that you should never give out your copy. But what are the best practices or what are your principles when you write a copy? You can talk about that.
Yeah. Well, and I don't give out my copy because I care if anybody else uses it. Like, it's not that at all. It's just no copy I ever write is the same, number
100%.
one. So that's part
And
of it,
I have a
right?
quote. I have a quote, and this is like I said this to someone when my lead magnet was giving away all the information for free and
Yeah.
just let people run with it. I would give them an entire playbook how to do cold outreach. And someone commented me and said, like, you should not be using this as a lead magnet because you are losing clients. And
Yeah.
my response to him was, you can always steal an artist's brush, but you cannot steal his imagination. So
Exactly.
if you are just trying to give out that painting to someone and say like paint exactly like this, they would never be able to achieve greatness. So
Right.
I
And
am
unless we have
100%
the
with
same
you.
client, yeah. And unless we have
Yeah,
the same client selling the same
yeah,
thing, it's not going to work, right?
correct.
So that's part of it. And I think part of it is we don't ever send the same copy more than once.
Yeah.
So
What's
at the
your
end of the
process
day,
like? Yeah. What's your process like when, let's say, for example, tomorrow you have Adobe coming to you and saying like, hey, promote my this business. So what is
mhm,
your process like? How do you think like how to write the copy for Adobe or what are the people? I'm sure you also consider who you are targeting while copywriting.
mhm.
So what does the process look like, or what are the best practices or principles when let's say Adobe signed up with you? Now what happens next?
Yeah, so two things I've come to realize. Number one is I think copy is only 20% of the whole equation. I think the most important 80% is, does this solution, does Adobe PDFs match the person that I'm introducing it to, right? And just to use that as an example, right? If I reach out to someone who doesn't use computers in their business, maybe they're an AC technician, and
Yeah.
they get appointments on their phone, and maybe they have Service Titan, which is, some kind of software that does all their invoices for them, and they just don't need PDFs, then trying to sell them Adobe makes no sense. And I
So
like to tell people, like, imagine you have, like, there's a lot of things going on in the world, right? So imagine you have two world leaders, and the way politics works, right, is world leader over here talks and the news reports it, and world leader over here talks and the news reports it, right? But when you get those two world leaders in the same room, things happen, right? And that's your 80%. That's the problem you're, or the solution you're selling, and getting that person in the right room. We do that via email, right? So that's your lead generation. And it's also your understanding of the ICP of your client. So I need to understand what Adobe wants to sell, how much it costs, what's the return on that investment based on how many emails I need to send, who are the right people that make purchasing decisions, which at a Fortune 500 company, the person who makes the purchasing decision is drastically different than a company that has two founders and three VAs. So you need to understand all that to get the 80% right, right? And then you need to get them in the same room, and that's the email, right?
Cool.
The other 20% is what you say when you're in the room, right? So if these two world leaders get in the room and they talk about flowers all day, then nothing happens. But if these two world leaders get in the room and they talk about the issues like the wars that are going on across the world and they come to conclusions, affect the impact, then you get the entire 100%. The same thing happens with cold email. If your messaging is good, so back to Adobe, if my messaging addresses a pain point that someone that needs Adobe uses, I might get a reply. If my messaging is professional and not salesy, I might get a reply. If I offer a lead magnet that helps them better understand why they should use Adobe, I might get a reply. If I send a video at low volumes, that might get them a reply, right? Like all of those things could trigger a reply. But if I piss them off, if I, write a 50, sentence email that they don't have time to read, I might not get a reply. The other aspect of it, and it gets even more complicated when you think about the fact that if I send the same exact email 25 times a day across 200 accounts, then I might want to get a reply, but they never see it because it's in their spam folder. Or if I put a link in there and the company thinks that that might be a phishing attack, then they may never see it, right? So there's so many variables to that 20%. But for me, copy is pretty simple. It needs to be relevant. It needs to address whatever you're trying to introduce, and it just needs to be the 20%. You need to be talking about the right thing. Sometimes people are going to engage because you're just lucky. At the end of the day,
100%, yeah.
you're 100%. Yesterday they fired somebody, or yesterday their contractor quit and now they need this person and your solution. Yesterday they went in to use Adobe's whatever, Google's PDF version or Google's thing, and it didn't work and they couldn't sign a contract and their boss got upset and they were like, go find something else like Adobe. There's so many things that factor into all of that you don't necessarily can control. But I personally, and I've always believed in, you send professional messaging, you're respectful. I don't believe in being over salesy, and you do it in a way that offers some kind of value. And traditionally, you will get some engagement. It's the tweaks, the
Makes
ups
sense.
and downs of that get you more or less, right?
So to summarize this, personalize so that you actually hook the person on to read that email.
Yeah,
Talk about a problem, not random things. Like you mentioned, you can't talk about flowers when you're in the room.
yeah,
So talk about the problem, offer them a solution, a lead magnet, which makes them respond back to you positively. And this is your success mantra in a way. And you're doing this
yeah.
at scale. You're sending thousands of email and you're also a Clay certified partner. So how does Clay help you doing this, or what's your process with Clay? Like when you look at Clay and now you have Adobe as a client, you have to achieve these three goals for your copywriting. How does Clay or any other tool helps you?
Yeah, so it really helps in the 80% for sure. Because 80, every lead we pull runs through Clay. It may not originate in Clay, but it ends up in Clay. So Clay is our orchestration, right? Everything we go out and get the data. It doesn't matter if we get it from Appify, for example, we scrape an Instagram. It doesn't matter if we pull in a lead list. Like if the client gives us something from their CRM, it all ends up in Clay. We do all of our validation in Clay via API. And then if we do any kind of additional enrichments, we do it in Clay. We write our copy. Today, we write all of our copy through Octave. And so we use agents. So every one of our copies are written by agents, and that's all piped into Clay via API. And then we put it into Instantly via API, right? So it's like,
Makes sense.
imagine somewhere along the way you make choices based off the ICP, the TAM, who you want to target, et cetera. When we make those choices, we get that data, it ends up in Clay, and then all the execution happens in Clay, and then it gets pushed out to Instantly to actually send the emails. And so it's a layer we can't really live without at this point. And it's
So
really because we operate every client independently. I now have people who literally sit there all day and build tables in Clay. And it's also, I think, what people fail to realize it, and this is what's really helped us grow and more importantly keep our customers, is we're a
mhm,
lot more now than a cold email agency. More than anything, we integrate our Clay solutions into CRMs with our clients. And I go into sales calls, and I did this yesterday with somebody, and I talk about our value proposition. It's no longer just sending emails. It's,
makes sense.
can I take your leads from other avenues and enrich them? Can I give you information about a lead before your team goes on a sales call? And that all happens with Clay as well.
That's amazing. For non-technical people who are watching this video, how would you define Clay to them or Octave to them? Like for non-technical people, like in simple words, if you have to give them an explanation.
Yeah, I like to tell people think of Clay as like Excel in the cloud combined with like Zapier. So if you could have an Excel spreadsheet in the cloud that row by row, column by column, you could enrich and call zaps all day. You know, that's what Clay is. Now, that's it in a very basic form. Like for us, it's more of we do APIs and webhooks and all of that data. So it's very much like an Excel view in the cloud, but like it just does things you can't do in Excel. Like you can go in, there's a formula, it's free too, by the way, in Clay,
Yeah.
where you can go in and type in the formula and it creates the formula for you, right? So like in Excel, if you want to do a V or H lookup, you gotta like what's this, what's that? And
Yeah.
in Clay, you go in and go look at column B, multiply it times column D, extract out. Like my favorite thing to do is like if all you have is an email address, I'll write a formula that says take everything after the at sign and put it in a new column because that's the domain, right? So it's just really simple stuff too. But then you can also do really complex stuff. Like I'm managing, financial and venture capitalist type lead generation that is robustly different type of data that I
Right.
could have never done without Clay. Like just the ability to pull in, these really detailed data sources and pull them in via API. And it's data I couldn't get anywhere else if I didn't have the ability to pull it into Clay row by row. At the high end, at the low end, for us, it's an absolutely critical skill.
Makes sense. Do you have a guide or a video which I can attach as a link to this video and people can access it for Clay with your affiliate program? So if they click it, like they get it.
Yeah, it's a funny thing you mentioned that because we brought that up a little bit earlier. Like I don't do that either. Like so I don't do the affiliate thing either. So it's
Mhm.
just one of those things where it's like if I talk about something, especially on LinkedIn, it's because I use it and I'm a paying customer and I believe in it. So I do have videos. Like I have a good YouTube channel where I go through workflows and stuff. I don't do the affiliate thing.
Cool. I will plug your YouTube channel, like share it with me on the link so
Yeah.
I can do that. So yeah, so if anyone is willing to learn more about Clay, I can add Josh's YouTube channel link in the description. He has made a lot of videos about Clay, about his workflows. You can go and check those out.
Yeah.
And yeah, coming back here, Josh, I have another question. So there was one thing, like one time you posted about this, you were able to book 200 meetings, not positive responses, but meetings. I have two questions for you. First is, how did you find time to attend 200 meetings? Second thing is, how were you able to do that? Like, what was your sales psychology about that script or that sequence? I know 200 positive responses, if someone says yes, okay, great. I know like it's possible, but 200 meetings out of an email, because after a positive response there is still a set of things you need to do to convert that into a meeting. So what was your psychology or what helped you to achieve those 200 meetings?
That's funny when I shared that, like I actually put my Calendly statistics up
Yeah.
there so people would know it was real. The only reason I didn't share my actual calendar because it just had the names of the people that I was meeting with, but it was hard. I mean, that was doing like 10 to 12 calls a day in 30-minute increments, right? I'll tell you how I did it. I was selling PR on behalf of content marketing media. We don't really do that anymore. We now do just cold email, but we used to sell PR, press releases and stuff. And so I used AI to write a press release on behalf of the lead, and I was actually sending the press release in the email. Like you talk, like imagine doing the lead magnet, but putting it in the first email and being like,
Excellent idea.
and it worked, right? Like, so that's what I did. And I was using AI to do it and just injecting data and they were good. Like I spent hours and hours building the prompt to get it right. It was just, hey, it was no bait and switch. It was just simply like, get back to us if you want us to publish this because we could, like, and we still can, but we just don't offer it as a service, but we could
Makes
publish
sense.
it on like Yahoo and Business Insider and stuff. So a lot of engagement there, right? So that was the first thing. But and I think I've seen that even today with some of the campaigns we run is if you can find the right way to position your solution in front of the right people, you can get that volume. And then it just becomes how many inboxes that it takes, you know. to do that
Mhm.
and manage that, and we closed a lot of deals from that. I mean, it was very good. But what the funny thing was is I kind of intentionally slowed it down
Yeah.
because while we were getting a lot of interest and excitement and we closed a lot of deals from it, to your point earlier, it's like, you don't want to live to do things just for the sake of money. Like it
Correct.
didn't, we also couldn't handle as quickly the amount of service that we were getting. You know what I mean? It's like there are other downstream things that
True,
made it
true,
that
true.
much more challenging. And so cold email is great. And when you do a good job, you book a lot of meetings, but in all fairness, you just create a whole nother set of problems for yourself that you weren't prepared for, right?
Correct. Yeah, you don't want to open a can of worms by doing that. So yeah,
I
makes
mean,
sense.
we're prepared now, and I'm sure all my clients would love to book 200 meetings, but
Yeah.
it's also a year later. Well, longer than it's much harder to today.
True, true. One question to this. So, to summarize, you skipped sending the lead magnet after a positive response. You gave the lead magnet directly. So that skip actually increased effectiveness. Have you tried similar approach for any other product? Because PR, I understand you can do a press release in a text, send it out, but it
Yeah.
may not work for a lot of companies. But have you taken a similar kind of an approach where just give the knowledge in the first email? And if they resonate with it, they come back to you on a call.
Yeah, I mean, we're probably one of the few agencies to this day that still sends like GIFs and stuff in the first email, and it works. I do it for two clients. One client actually that is their technology, and so we run their campaigns. The other client sells a similar type product, and I can tell you with no doubt, there are business models where you can send links and everything else in cold emails. The only difference is the model you design has to work at a lower volume at the end of the day,
Correct.
right? So these are people we send 5 emails a day for, but the
Hmm.
ROI is there in the solution that 5 emails a day, low volume, works. And it just comes down to when you're sending 25 emails a day, that's still 5 times the amount of 5 emails a day, right? I I have clients. I have one client that's in Germany, and this guy we send 30 emails a day for. He's got a link in the email, and he gets 100 interested replies every single day, if not more. But you know why? Because he has a killer offer, and we send it to the right people. You can break all the rules if you get a lot of engagement, right? But most people don't, right? Most people get 1 or 2% reply rates, right? So then you have to follow the rules. And that's what I've learned about this business. There are best practices, and you need to follow those best practices, right? I might blow people's minds saying this. I've run campaigns without doing warm up and got results.
I say this,
Yeah,
I say
you
this
know?
always, like best practices is one thing, but you need to experiment enough in cold emailing business. Like if you are, let's say, a flower shop today and you want to send invoices to people, you go to Google, you sign up, and you start sending your emails. Google is not going to block you. So without warm up, you are actually doing that. And warm up, honestly, is something this is truly built by email marketers.
Yeah,
It was the same thing which I told you, like people try to bring in fear into the mix, try to scare people shit off and then make
yeah.
money from them. So warm up, personally, I feel that like that is how warm up is. But having relationship with some of the top guys at the ESPs, I know warm up will not help you all that much compared to your actual copy, your sending pattern. And I say like the only mantra is mimic human behavior. I run 4 businesses throughout my day. I don't send more than 5 emails, new emails. I'm talking about new emails. So
Yeah,
imagine me, like I run 4 business, but still I'm not doing that. And you want to send 25 emails. That's
I know.
shit ton of emails you are sending. So, and people say,
I
no,
think,
it's within the limit. And again, like someone was saying this to me, a very good friend of mine. Email is bigger than internet. If you think about it, you are a tech guy, very savvy. If you look at the architecture of email, it's much more complex and bigger compared to the World Wide Web.
mhm,
And there are people who make a claim, I understand email. No one understands emails. There
mhm,
are very few people who have like, for example, like, let's say it's a city, they are walking on a one road, but there is not a single person who can claim, I know every single road in the city, every single place. That is
mhm,
how complex email is. And
mhm.
yeah, you're doing a great job. I know we had this chat, you mentioned like I'm sending links. And I said, like, yeah, it's okay if you send low volumes and send links, it should not be a problem. But then what happens is, like, again, this is the problem with people who create noise. They would come and say like, hey, they spoke about this, they are sending links, we should send links, and now they will send links with 50 emails. That is going to hurt, and they'll come back saying
Yeah.
problem.
Well, and then they blame you too. So like,
Yeah,
and here's my thing. I think this is what people need to realize. You can do whatever you just need to understand the economic model of what you're doing,
correct.
right? And so I tell clients this all the time. Like I have sent emails to invite Fortune 500 executives to football games, and it works.
It works
I've sent,
definitely.
yeah, and I've sent emails to people to recruit them for jobs. Like not on behalf of recruiters, like just to say, we think you should fill out an application for this role. To invite, you know, some of my clients to be speakers at conferences. Like every different use case you can imagine, I've sent cold emails for, and all of them have worked, right? Like
Yeah,
they've gotten replies, they've gotten engaged. Doesn't matter if it's Microsoft, Google, whatever. You, as long as you understand the financial model of what you're trying to accomplish, right? And so, like I tell people, let's just say you're going to go buy, I'm going to go buy 100 inboxes from you, and I need to buy my domains, or with your new service, I don't, but let's just say I'm going to decide I'm going to spend $500 a month with you. And that is going to get me 100 inboxes, let's just say, for example, right? So I know my fixed cost, no matter what I do, is $500. Maybe I need to go buy Instantly and Clay. So maybe that goes to 1,000, right? We won't go into all the plans and everything, but let's just say I commit, it's going to cost me $1,000 to send emails every month.
yeah,
So if I have 100 inboxes, even if I only send five a day, right? That's 500. If I send 20 days, I can send 10,000 emails for
yeah,
$1,000. Okay. You can definitely do it cheaper, more expensive, no matter all the choices you make, right?
yeah,
But I need to ask myself, if I send 10,000 emails and it costs me $1,000, am I able to make that $1,000 back?
correct.
Now, at the end of the day, if you can do a good job, you can probably 10 times your money, right? Which is what we
Right.
do. Like
True, true.
we
Very true.
generate well more revenue than what we spend. And that's why we have staff and teams and we can try new tech, right? But the other side of it is that I've found that people are so regimented. They're very much like, I got to send 10 a day. I got to warm up for 2 weeks. I got, like all of these things, those are best practice. The reality for me is if I can spend $1,000 and make $10,000, I could give a
100%.
shit if I burn all those
That
inboxes.
that
I'll
is
just go
how,
buy more,
yeah, that
That's
is
what people
how
don't
one should
understand.
think. 100%. I always say this to my clients on the agency side. We are not onboarding any new clients, but I used to tell like during discovery call, I wanted to find out like what is their urgency, how quickly do they need to implement this channel, and based on that urgency, we used to tweak, like, are we going to do the warm up? Are we not going to do the warm up? Are we going to buy thousands of domains and just burn them just because customer
Yeah.
has a priority? I don't care, and I advise this to everyone. As long as your cost is less than 20% of your overall, whatever price you're asking for, your selling
Yeah.
price, you're in good hands. Like most of the businesses spend up to 45 to 50% on customer acquisition. But if you are
Yeah.
spending just 20% on cold emailing infrastructure, you want to burn it out, you want to use Clay, you want to use expensive data model, as long as you are in 20%, it's good for you. And you can even make a call. Like this is personally your business. Like you are the end decision maker. If you think you are okay to give off 50% to acquire those customers, or their lifetime value is much more higher, even if you are paying a higher price for acquisition, it's your call, and go that route. And this is what I love about you. And I would say, like, you are one of the three people, there are only three people I recommend clients to, and you are my top priority only because of this. Like, you don't like to put on a stigma, like, this is how it should be done, this is how you do. You understand your client's requirement based on like what they are aiming for, how soon they want to go there, and you make a strategy accordingly. So that's amazing. And I would want a lot of people, in this industry follow similar strategies. And also, cold email automation platform should take steps. I don't know, maybe have a webinar once in a week, invite some people. They have much more bigger audience. So they should bring on people to break these kind of stigmas rather than not talking about them and keep minting the money.
And I mean, don't get me wrong. I believe in rules, and I think that
Hmm.
people need to learn foundational things
Correct.
too, right? And if you never asked me this, but I'll tell you, like, how I learned cold email is that I followed people on LinkedIn. I got engaged in a Facebook group for Instantly, and I read a whole bunch of Instantly's accelerator material, and then I just went and tried it, and then I started learning
Correct.
what worked and what didn't work, right? And so like there is foundational knowledge I think people need to understand,
100%, 100%. You
but
need
it's
to
just a
learn how to
balance.
drive the car, 100%. But based on that urgency, are you okay to take on that speeding ticket? Like if your
Yeah.
wife is in the hospital, it's your call. You can take that speeding ticket. If you want to slow down, you don't have much, you don't have urgency, you
Yeah.
can slow down, take it peacefully. Of course, foundational knowledge is important, but you got to experiment with the situation in hand or understanding your customer's need. And that is how you actually make money, I would say. You solve a problem and you solve a problem within time, within a budget, and people will pay you for solving that problem. And the bigger problem you solve, the bigger reward is. I'll tell you something. I have a client, his entire target market audience is 70 companies across the world. And these 70
Yeah.
companies are banks. So if he has to sell a service, he can only sell to these 70 people. We have a campaign for him. He told me, like, I was like, what's your budget? He's like, I don't have any budget. You can go as much as in you want. So we did not take the step of pursuing anyone. We only took the step of educating people, these 70 banks, on one vulnerability or a one risk at a time. And if that resulted into, now he has two of these banks as a client, but the only educational approach, because he has time and one client he closes, they do a 20-year contract. So it works out for him and he's ready to spend on it. But in spite of that, I did not tell him like, okay, give me $10,000, $15,000. This is going to cost this much. Your target market is low. I educated him about the entire process and I told him we will take the route of letting people know problems. And he agreed to it. We have a contract in place. He's getting clients. Everyone is happier. But if I had taken the route of we need to send 1,000 emails, we don't have 1,000 emails. There are only
Yeah.
70 people in the world now who can become our customers. So yeah, that's the difference, I would say. So yeah, controls are
No.
always with you. It's similar to driving a car. You know how to drive a car, you learn that, that's your foundation. And then on the road, now, like if there is a tree, there's an obstacle, you need to maneuver. If you need to reach faster, press the accelerator. If you're going too fast and you're going to crash, press the brakes. So
Right.
that's how it works. So yeah, that's amazing. I think we spoke about a lot of things, which will help agencies as well as people who want to start cold emailing and want to leverage AI for their execution, about writing the copy or in general, automating couple of processes. I would leave it to this note, and I will leave your calendar details below or email, whichever you like, so people can reach out to you directly with any questions. And anyone watching this, I would definitely recommend checking out Josh, LinkedIn, as well as his YouTube channel. There is a lot of value in them, and trust me, even if you paid $10,000 to someone to teach you that, no one is going to teach you or spill those beans that Josh is doing on a daily basis. So yeah, go follow him, check out his channel. That's it. Josh, anything else you would like to add to this?
No, just thank you for the opportunity, right? The best conversations are the one that are just candid, and we kind of cover a lot of different things, but it was a great conversation. I really enjoyed
Yeah,
it, and my pleasure to
yeah.
be here.
Likewise, man. I just like to do that. It's like, you put on Google Map, it shows you this is the direction to go. But then again, you
Hmm.
maneuver based on whatever is happening on the road. And I love those things where you don't try to go scripted. And we speak everything word to word unnaturally.
Yeah.
So yeah, and maybe I don't know this, but maybe we can start a talk show, invite other people as well, and
Yeah.
just put 1 hour. So I saw this on List Kit. They have every single day webinar at 9 p.m. Dubai time, and every single day they might talk about copy, they might talk about tech, they might talk about data, anything. Couple of us, we can start that kind of a series where anyone can join in. So it happens a lot. Like people, if they are using Instantly, they are part of Instantly community. They are not aware of Smart Leads event, but we both are independent of Instantly and Smart Lead in a way where
Yeah.
we have the knowledge. Of course, like we have our relationships with both the companies, but I feel if we take that step, just come on the call 1 hour in a week and answer question. It does not matter if people join or don't join, but even if that one person joins and asks us questions, I think we can bring a lot of impact, a lot of change.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And get Felipe too involved. That'd be kind of cool.
Let's see, like if people want it, definitely we will organize something like that.